What's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? Boogie298 coming at you live once again to the power of the internet. That's Sammy squeaking a toy in the background. And we just got back from watching Solo, a Star Wars movie.
Yep.
Or as some people on the internet have referred to it, and I kid you not, Soylo, a Soy Wars story, because it's for soy boys.
Oh, soy boys.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
So I walked into this movie with zero expectations. I expected a complete dumpster fire, and I think what were your expectations going in?
Oh yeah, nothing. After hearing about how all the problems that the production had,
firing two other directors,
yeah,
40% reshoots, Ron Howard coming in at the last minute,
completely changing the tone of the movie. I was not expecting anything good at all.
This evasive trailer, which seemed to show next to nothing except little glimpses and bursts, I expected absolutely nothing. And I think for me and a lot of other people, I think it's a good idea to cover how we feel about Star Wars in general. So a lot of people don't know this. I saw Return of the Jedi when it was new in theaters. It was the first Star Wars movie I'd ever seen, and I was completely lost, and I did not enjoy it at all. So it wasn't until the 90s during the re-release that I saw the original movies with all of the weird edits and the changes to it. So I'm not like a classic dyed-in-the-fan Star Wars fan, and I think maybe you might be a little closer to that. Did you grow up with the movies?
I didn't grow up with them as much. I don't like to compare the two, but I grew up more on the Star Trek side than the Star Wars side. But I do have appreciation for both, and I really don't even think they're really comparable. If I find them as two different genres.
Right, Star Trek is more of a soap opera, whereas Star Wars is like Indiana Jones
fantasy and space.
Right.
It's very different.
Right. And so,
and I do have a certain appreciation.
And I think we're fairly divisive, but I think a lot of people disagree with me when it comes to Rogue One. But Rogue One is the first side story, I guess, and no spoilers, but that movie, similar to this one, kind of takes one line from the original trilogy and then just kind of goes with it. One little segment of the original trilogy. So,
that's fair.
I kind of always felt that kind of hacky and kind of goofy and and so Rogue One to me was a bit of a miss because it felt like just a big fan service movie, and unfortunately I'm not the target fan. I just enjoy the movies. I'm not obsessed with them. So when I see stuff like walkers on a beach, that didn't make any sense to me. I don't know.
See, for me, Rogue One is right under Episode 5. For me, it's my number 2 Star Wars.
And
film.
so for me, Rogue One is like a 4 or a 5 to give you a general idea. But Empire, I think, is my favorite movie. What's your favorite in the series?
It's also Empire.
Okay, and I think my least favorite is probably the second prequel. It's just
Episode 1 is my least favorite.
Right. That was I get that. So just to give you an idea about how we feel about Star Wars in general. And as usual, we're going to stay spoiler-free here for the most part. So let's talk about some general stuff. What do you think of the script overall, just for quality, as a Star Wars story?
So it was fine. It was nothing. In terms of an actual action movie, the script is kind of generic. They just took kind of a formulaic action movie script and just inserted in the Star Wars universe, which is fine. Right. I was fine with that.
I mean, almost every movie's that way, right?
Pretty much, yeah, exactly.
Some are blockbuster formula,
but really creative nowadays.
And for having to backwards engineer the story from this is Han Solo, this is what Han Solo was like. Now, how did Han Solo get to this point? That's a really interesting aspect for a writer to have to try to conquer. And we saw it with Rogue One, and I think with Rogue One, they didn't nail it as well as they nailed it here. I feel like they really, really got it here. So let's talk about casting a little bit. So obviously Donald Glover, I'm a huge Donald Glover fan. I love him as Lando. How did you feel about Donald Glover?
I thought I was going to like him a lot more. Maybe it's because he didn't actually have as much screen time as I was hoping he would. He just didn't play as big of a part in the movie as I thought he would.
And see, that was very surprising to me. I was shocked at how much Lando there was. I thought there was going to be 20 seconds, 30 seconds. I just thought he was very brief, because he's very briefly in the trailer.
Yeah.
But there's a tremendous amount of Lando. He's in a large portion, about a quarter or maybe half the movie.
I guess I guess I was just expecting more. I don't know. It didn't. I was just a little bit let down. I thought he played the character well. I guess I just wanted more of him.
Now the gentleman playing Han Solo, he was obviously the target of all of my ire on Twitter, and when I talked about this movie, saying that he did not look or sound at all like Han Solo. Han Solo's got straight hair. This kid has curly hair. What is going on? Why would you cast this guy as Han Solo? And I think a lot of people have pointed out to me, they said you can't replaced Harrison Ford, and that's true. But I don't want the kid to act like Harrison Ford. I want him to act like Han Solo, and do his own interpretation of Han Solo, right? And I'm a big fan of the opera fan. A lot of different people have taken on the guys at the Phantom at this point. And they all do a good job because they play the Phantom. So I need him to play Han Solo, and I felt like in the preview stuff he was not doing that very well. Going into it, were you expecting him?
So I have a little bit of a different opinion on that. I feel like actors should definitely have like their own interpretation of characters. When you're dealing with like different actors portraying the same character, like Heath Ledger's version of the Joker is going to be different than like Jared Leto's version of the Joker, and that's definitely where actors should take their own liberties in creating their own personalization for that. But in this, since they're inserting this movie within this Star Wars universe, and we already have Han Solo as come on, Sammy,
come on
up here, buddy. And since we already have Han Solo as an established character, like I think there's got to be some sort of connection, like mannerisms and speech patterns or something to connect these two. But I think he did a very good job.
And I was amazed. He did an incredible job of it. And then I think what I was really surprised by, if it comes out eventually to say that most of these reshoots were involving just him learning how to play a better Han Solo, I would not be surprised because he nailed it. The dialogue was very well written without being too overly fan servicey.
His personality,
his
was
delivery,
very much,
right? Even his mannerisms. I was so surprised. So you're going into the movie afraid of that. I think you shouldn't be afraid. So overall, the script is decent. The CGI is fantastic. The casting turned out to be incredible. All of the side pieces, all of the different characters. Woody Harrelson playing,
I was very. I've been a big fan of Woody Harrelson the last couple of years.
And I was so glad to see him in this movie.
Woody Harrelson.
And I think when I see Woody Harrelson in a movie, I'm often like, well, that's just Woody Harrelson in this world. And I felt like that here, except there a couple times I got lost in the character of Beckett. I was surprised by that. The main nemesis, what's the actor's name? Do you know
Paul Bettany plays
Vision.
He plays Vision. He's something Voss. Voss is his last name.
Right, and
is the main villain.
Excellent villain. And then the supporting cast here, all the female actresses, the voice actors, everybody else is fantastic, including the cameos.
Lando's droid, L3.
Right.
Hands down my favorite character.
Right, so we should probably, that said, before we get into spoilers, we're definitely getting right near the edge of spoilers now. I think I walked into this saying I was going to hate this movie, expecting to dislike this movie, and I'm very pleasantly surprised. So if your expectations are lowered, I think you will end up being very surprised by this movie. And if you are like me and did not enjoy Rogue One because you felt it was too fan servicey and didn't really go anywhere and didn't really fit into the universe, this movie feels like a Star Wars movie to me. I was very surprised it had again. I almost expected Indiana Jones in space. That's what I wanted from this movie. I wanted Indiana Jones in space, and that's what I felt like I got. I got Indiana Jones in space. So that said, go into it with that expectations, and I don't think you will be disappointed. Would you recommend it?
Yeah, no, definitely. I would definitely recommend it.
Would you recommend it in theaters, or do you think this is one you can wait to see at home?
I don't think it's a must-see in theaters, honestly. Like, it's a good movie. I don't think seeing it in the theatrical atmosphere necessarily adds anything to it.
Yeah, I think the CGI is great, but there's no huge spoilers here that you need to worry about. Nobody's going to ruin the movie for you, so you don't have to rush out to see it first week. We saw it in Atmos, but I don't really like IMAX very much. I don't really like 3D very much, so that's entirely up to you. But I think you can wait a few weeks for the crowds to clear out to see this one, and I think you could probably wait to see it at home without any tragedy following you. So, all right, we should get into spoilers. Could you say spoilers for me so they know we're getting into spoilers?
Spoilers.
Now here come the spoilers. So if you don't want the spoilers, pause this video, go rush off to the theater, watch the movie, then come back and see it, or come back and watch it at another date. So I do want to start right with what's her name? L3, or as I'm going to call her, SJW5, because it's almost like a knowing nod to the critics of Star Wars and the critics of the universe, and maybe even the people who criticize them for being pandering. She's this very woke robot who, just one of the points, Lando asks her what she needs, and she says, "How about equal rights?"
Yeah.
And she literally...
you first meet her while she's like, there's like these droid battles, and she's like banging on the cage, like let these droids out, they're being oppressed, and all. It's really funny.
And if you saw her character design, she's thick.
Yeah,
She's
yeah,
the first
she's
thick
a pretty thick
robot
droid.
in all of Star Wars, except like R2D2, who's clearly morbidly obese. That entire line of robots, but otherwise, maybe BB-8. BB-8's a little round.
He's pretty spherical, yeah.
Right, but I thought it was a wonderful character to add to canon. I think it was a lot of fun, and I think, again, there's going to be plenty of people who are triggered because there are going to be people who are like, is that supposed to represent me? Is that what they think I sound like? And there's going to be people like, I can't believe how they're pandering. But I don't think it's either of those. I think it was just a cool, fun design choice, and
it was funny.
Right.
I think her character entrance was the first time that I laughed the entire movie.
Right, and I don't know who wrote that. I don't know who decided to include that in the movie. But once again, I feel like that's balls of steel in this political
and not like
climate, right?
not like laughing at like the as like making light of the whole equal rights thing, but just like it was a funny scene.
Right, because that robot would desperately actually want to have equal rights. Her race isn't literally enslaved, and she has literally been programmed to be woke at some point or discovered it on her own. And then her ending story arc, the fact that she becomes part of canon quite literally because she is melded with the Millennium Falcon at the end of the movie, that's incredible. That's really interesting. The Millennium Falcon is an SJW.
Yeah.
And that is, I don't know what to think about that.
She was the reason that Han was able to do the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs.
If you round down.
If you round
down. So that is, I think, my primary talking point when you get into spoilers is, that's the line that they made this movie around. They are like, let's take that one line, which admittedly seemed like a mistake when you watch it for the first time, because a parsec is a measure of distance. So people tried to retcon it as they wrote the Star Wars universe. Fans did, other authors did. Well, of course it's a measure of distance. So how could it possibly be a measure of distance? And in this case, I guess it is trying how close you get to the stupid warped hole, which still doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, it makes a lot. So normally when they were going through the maelstrom,
they've got to go around.
They either have to go around and plot this really circuitous course to avoid all of the traps and dangers and whatnot, and which would take a greater distance than if you just kind of like flew straight through it.
So yeah, they basically flew as close as anyone would dare.
Yeah,
and then they
closer.
also cheated. The Millennium Falcon cannot naturally do that. But of course, Han embellishes as he would, and so he embellishes that story when he tells it later. But obviously, they use a bit of a cheat by adding a little bit of whatever the coaxium crystal juice, the magic sci-fi juice,
the MacGuffin.
Right, and so absolutely, I loved that part of the storyline. So when someone told me last night in DMs that this movie is exactly what you think it is, whatever your expectations are, that's what you're going to see. Do you expect it to be the Kessel Run? It's going to be the Kessel Run. Are you going to see him beat Lando in a game of what is the name of the game again?
I don't even remember. It's Space Poker.
Right, Space Poker, right. Which is actually, fans have actually developed a full game based on it, and I don't know if this is a proper...
Sakat, maybe?
Right, something right. They developed a full game around it, and I don't know if this actually represents it because the cards look different from what I've seen. So I don't know if like fans are going to be thrown out of the moment for that. And fair warning if you're like really into Star Wars,
really into space poker,
yeah, you're gonna have
this may not be authentic space poker.
This is not gonna be good for you. You're gonna be upset. But I was like, I rolled my eyes because that's so hacky writing. Like, well, give me something new. Give me something I don't know about Han Solo. Don't just take that one story and tell that Star Wars story. And they truly subverted my expectations because that is still the framework. But there's so many characters I did not expect. And I rolled my eyes a little bit when, like, you know, what's your name? Chewbacca. Well, you're going to need a nickname. I'm not going to say that every time. Like that. Oh, that's what bothered me about Rogue One is these little fan servicey nods. Like, oh, God. But this movie has so many new characters and expands on the Lando character in a way that I found to be amazing. The female love interest, I forget the actress's name.
She's the chick from Emilia Clarke. She's from Game of Thrones.
Right.
She plays Daenerys Targaryen.
And very, very pleased with her character. I was really surprised at, how the movie foreshadows even the ending because he's told many times.
I didn't trust her from the get-go.
Right. Like, and she's like, you don't know what I've been through. And he's like, nope, you know what? I'm going to follow my heart. I'm going to throw myself at it. I'm going to do the thing. And then, just as the movie teaches us, everyone betrays you.
Oh yeah, don't trust anyone.
Don't trust anyone, and this is how Han becomes the person that he is. And I was really surprised by that because, again, subverting expectations almost every step of the way, whether it's the poker game, which completely, I figured Lando would cheat, but I didn't know there was going to be like a second game, which I almost feel like it would be funnier if there wasn't a second game where he actually won the Falcon, that he acquired it in a different way later. But he's like, I won it fair and square in the first game. I know you cheated.
Yeah.
Like, that would have been like a funnier little subtext later on. But they decided to show him win it fair and square. And it was still good. It was still good. The second game where he steals the card from the hidden card sleeve.
The card of his sleeve.
So overall, I think it was as good as you could expect. It's got a fairly decent plot built around it, and it threw a lot of surprises in there for a cynical person like me. So as a Star Wars fan, how did you feel?
Can we talk about the one thing that I didn't expect, and I don't know if you expected, but the actual big reveal of the villain at the very end?
So at this point, that just seems to be what Disney is doing. So let's bring a female character in every chance we get.
No, not her. The guy on the hologram.
Oh, the guy in the hologram. So, of course, all right.
That's who I'm talking about.
We'll build some suspense. We'll get right back to that. Keep that in mind. But so at the beginning of the movie, there is a raider who is attempting to steal the crystals as well. At the beginning, I thought she was security at first, but I guess that's not the case. They were trying to catch it as well. And I guess I should have caught on to that when they were trying to steal it with the cables in the exact same way.
I thought she was just like an opposing smoke.
And so in the big reveal, we have like a Samus moment in which she takes off the mask and she's a female character, but she is not like who's the large woman in silver who in the new movies played the same actress from Game of Thrones.
Phasma.
Yeah, like the actress that plays Phasma makes a lot of sense that she's, when you take off that armor, that's her. This girl looked like Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn to begin with, and she was a much smaller frame once the mask is off than she was with the mask. So I was like, that seemed kind of shoehorny and a little frustrating. I don't mind her being a female, that's fine. Obviously, with the mask and the modulated voice, I probably should have even seen that coming. And I don't know how she ties into the mythos or the canon or...
Well, they're like the spark of the rebellion.
Right, which I have no problem with all of that. I just have a problem with the casting because she just didn't really seem to fit. When the mask came off, I'm like, who the hell is that? Because that's definitely not the person that was playing with the mask. Fair. But for all I know, it was. But so the big reveal is Darth Maul, which this ties into Darth Maul. Now that to me again seemed a little fan servicey because he doesn't do anything in the movie. But then, I mean, Han never really. It's weird that the timelines can even line up like that. So I don't know enough about the timelines to know if that's reasonable. But that threw me out of the moment. I'm like, is this the same timeline?
Well, it is. So this, I believe, takes place after Episode 1.
Right.
So that would imply that Darth Maul did not die in Episode 1.
Okay, so and obviously
you got like sliced in half.
Because in the cartoon he gets sliced in half, but then they bring him back using like some sort of robotic necromancy and make him half spider.
Yeah.
So
there's that.
So
I don't know.
Canon?
I don't know if that's. In fact, actually, I'm pretty sure after Disney took over Star Wars, they said that like everything that was not in an actual movie is not canon, and now the only thing that they've added to canon has been like their television.
Because my understanding, that meant that this had to happen before Darth Maul gets cut in half by Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon.
Yeah, I assume that we will, in the later Han Solo movies or some other maybe Darth Maul story movie or whatever, we will learn how he came back to life.
And if we do get another Solo movie, they set it up very well here. Beckett tells him there is a big gangster on Tatooine. He's a really big gangster. I love the fat jokes in there. Yeah. I could relate to Jabba the Hutt fat jokes all day, so I was really excited to hear that. They set this up as a potential another Solo movie.
I think there's supposed to be a trilogy. I think they're actually going to make a trilogy.
If you told me that 5 hours ago, I would have rolled my eyes and said, no, God, no. But this was surprisingly more enjoyable than I thought. But so as a Star Wars fan, as a cynic, I know how I feel as a cynic. How do you feel as a bit more of a fan? Slightly more of a fan?
It's fine. Like I was actually thinking about it on the way over here. I put it like as number 5 on my list. So it's kind of like right in the middle. But I still think it's like better than your average movie.
And Rogue One for you said that was like number
1. So my top 5 are Episode 5 is number 1,
right?
Followed by Rogue One, followed by Episode 4, followed by Episode 7, and then this is right before, or comes after, or right above episode 6 for me. This is between episode 6 and episode 7 for me.
That's fascinating. That's what my orders are so different from everybody else's. But again, I don't really know why it is.
I sparked quite the discussion on Facebook after I posted my list after seeing The Last Jedi
right.
last year.
Now there are 10 total movies, so now you can rate them 1 to 10, and until 2 months from now when they crank out another one at the rate they're going, right? You'll be able to do that for another 2 or 3 months, or at least I guess this Christmas. So I guess I think I was beginning to feel what a lot of people who were watching this video probably were feeling is, I guess, what we would call Star Wars fatigue, because we're sticking to the same storyline, whereas Marvel goes all over the place. You got the Ant-Man, you got the Spider-Man, you got all the different stuff. This is just more of the same, and I was so pleasantly surprised that this was not more of the same, that there was a lot of characters and a lot of new characters and a lot of new properties and a lot of new ships and a lot of new stuff and a new location.
But there's still a lot of similarities.
Right.
Like you gotta, I mean, if you're one thing that I did like about like the little Easter eggs that they threw in is that it helped connect it to the existing universe. Like you've got like the main universe, in my opinion, is the episodes 1 through 8 now, and as you build off of that, you're kind of going to spiderweb out to build this Star Wars cinematic universe similar to what they've done with the Marvel cinematic universe. But you got to start at the core first and work your way out from there. So I mean, give it about 5 years, and we're probably going to get the Star Wars version of Guardians of the Galaxy into this, as far as just way out their IP.
Honestly, would love that at this point. I think I'm just as concerned as anybody else that Star Wars is going to get run into the ground. The toys aren't as valuable as collectibles as they used to be. People aren't as excited about the properties as they used to be. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's so much competition in the geek sphere that there's so much to capture your attention. I don't know if this does a lot to recapture attention, but I didn't have the problems that I had with... I didn't have the problems that I had with the Last Jedi, with this one that I did with the Last Jedi. I felt like they treated the property well, while still doing new stuff and doing unique stuff, and while subverting expectations, but in a way that was really enjoyable. And that's what I want. That's what I liked so much about to compare it to the last Marvel movie. Infinity War. Why can't I remember the name of that? To compare it to Infinity War, it subverted expectations in a very pleasing way, and I found this movie doing the exact same thing. And just a few minutes in, I was just kind of like, I think I'm going to like this movie. And about halfway through, I had a few belly laughs, which I noticed nobody else was laughing, and maybe it was only funny to me, but I was like, oh, that's hysterical. That's really good. That's really good writing. That's really well. This scene is fantastic. And then the plot twists and the turns, and there was some really solid foreshadowing, like at the beginning with the knives. He's like, put this back in my office. I might need it again later. And then clearly he does. And sometimes that can be hacky if it's poorly done. In this case, it was really well done. So overall, where would you rate it on a scale from just 1 to 10? 10 being rush out and see, 1 being avoid at all costs.
About a 7.
Yeah, I'd put it about there. I did like it more than Rogue One. I'm very surprised. I did like some of the fan service. Darth Vader at the end of Darth Vader at the end of Rogue One. But in this case, I feel like it did. I feel like the fan service was toned down enough to where it didn't throw me out of the movie. And I think it's well worth a watch. So, guys, I think it's going to wrap it up. I don't know if I'll see that a second time in the theaters. What about you?
It didn't feel like a second view from. Like I watched it and I enjoyed it, and there wasn't anything that I had to watch Infinity War at least a second time to catch some stuff that I missed.
Right. And I feel like this is a good Netflix watch, or maybe I'll get it on the Xbox Live service or download it through whatever streaming app when it finally comes, or buy it on the day it comes out via some digital service. But I don't feel like I need to rush out to see it a second time in the theater, and I don't think you will either. But I think it's definitely worth the first watch. So, guys, we appreciate you. This is once again my good friend Jayson. He has nothing to promote, so that said, just find him on Facebook and stalk him. Thanks for joining me on this, man. As always, guys, thanks for watching. I love you very much. I'll speak with you again soon. Go watch it. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
You will.